Morning, folks. Unitic here. I guess it's the first full day of summer. It's June the 22nd, Monday. And I am hiking backwards this morning. I'm near a park. I just left a park called East Fork State Park, about 25 miles east of Cincinnati. And took one more stab at some foot trail in Ohio, because the Buckeye Trail / ADT goes through East Fork and picks up some trails there that circumnavigate the lake there that's composed from water from the East Fork of the Little Miami River. Well, it was a consistent trail. The first mile I got on yesterday was horse trail, and it was a mess with all the rain we've had over the last week. And I bushwhacked, waded through a mile of that, and then was able to jump over onto some roads and take roads for the next 2 or 3 miles, and then got back on the trail where it enters the heart of the park itself. And about a quarter mile into it, the trail disappears into a swamp that where the lake overflowed its boundaries, and that was as far as I could go. So I camped last night, and I'm backtracking today about 7 miles back to the bike alternative that I skipped yesterday, thinking I'd enjoy a night or two in the park. Well, I enjoyed one. And so today, hang on just a second, let this car pass. Today, hiking backwards back to where the bike alternative picks up, and I'll go through Williamsburg. Good news is I'll be able to get a cup of coffee and maybe a little breakfast in about 7 miles. And then later today through Batavia, and hopefully I can find a place to camp tonight, which is part of what I wanted to talk about today. I've been thinking a lot over the course of the trail how this experience gives me just a taste of what it must feel like on some level to be homeless. In the true sense of the word, I am homeless right now. My home is being rented by some folks, friends of mine, that have the option to buy it, and that's the plan. I have no fixed mailing address other than my sister and brother-in-law kindly allow me to take some mail there. Don't have much mail left. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm well. A little muggy this morning, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But I think we'll make it.
Yep, I think so. Enjoy your walk.
You too.
Gentlemen out for a morning walk. That's a nice interchange. I haven't had a lot of those here lately. Although a nice family yesterday, grandfather and grandmother were visiting children and grandchildren for Father's Day, and he was kind enough to offer me a cold bottle of water, and then I had a great conversation with his wife, Carol. So, and I'm not sure if it was her daughter or daughter-in-law, Angie. Thank you very much for the cold water. But anyway, in the true sense, I really am homeless. But what I mean is the feeling I get out here. I did a video earlier about the most powerful fear that people who have a desire to control others play upon, and that's ratcheting up the fear of other people. You know, there's a natural kind of inborn protective mechanism that I guess is biological, that gives us caution around other people. But I'm talking about the fear that's made up of ideas planted into a young mind about people that look different, act different, speak differently, have different belief systems, and that those puppet masters, those people in positions of authority, have learned through the centuries how to play upon those fears and to ratchet them up and to use them to their advantage. So a telltale hallmark example of that is anytime you see in the media people playing up the differences, especially if it's authority figures, they're using that mechanism. Many of them consciously, some of them unconsciously. They don't know that they're using that mechanism. It's just what they've been taught. Kind of like the book, The Four Agreements, that I've recommended so many times. Most of what we've learned through our lives is innocently taught to us by the people that love us the most. But if they have a belief system that's based upon falsehoods passed along however many generations and hundreds of years prior, they're going to innocently pass along, what may be a skewed belief system that was actually based upon truth at some point. Many religions, unlike the intentions of their quote-unquote founders or their namesakes, are not based upon the true teachings, the essential teachings of those that are attributed with the inspiration for that religion. And that's just the truth. Any good religious scholar can find citation after citation that would validate that observation. Buddha and Christ, I think, would roll their eyes in many ways at some of the belief systems that surround the religions named after them. Anyway, coming back to the feeling of homelessness, I'm a 55-year-old, gray-bearded man walking down a road in America with a backpack on through neighborhoods and farms, and many times people look upon me with suspicion. They're guarded. Some people, like the family I mentioned yesterday, just immediately open their hearts and have a sense of trust, more about the way they look at the world, hence the Four Agreements teachings. You always project the world from within your own heart and within your own mind onto the screen around us. But our consciousness, our state of being, is what creates our reality, not the external world. Hence, two people can experience what apparently is the same occurrence in wholly different ways. One through the eyes of fear and apprehension, one through the eyes of love and happiness and joy. And as Adam Kokesh said the other night in his presentation, based on his book called Freedom, real freedom comes in the realization that you get to choose in every instant what your frame of perception is. And he got that in a prison stay in Washington, D.C., where he wrote the book, and got very, very clear that he had the ability to choose to be happy in every circumstance. Powerful, powerful insight, difficult to practice, a daily challenge, but one with great rewards. So a lot of people react fearfully to me, and I've been a little down about that. There's two people hiking the trail ahead of me right now. One, my words, kind of a fresh-faced 30-year-old all-American young man taking a hiatus from his career. Wonderful sense of humor, great attitude, and I'm sure that probably plays into his reception from people. But I read their journals. The other being a school teacher, 40-year-old woman, also with a great attitude. This is Amy and Ryan, who you can find on trailjournals.com under American Discovery Trail 2015. And they don't seem to engender as much fear. I guess there's less suspicion, perhaps, for a young person like Ryan to be hiking across the country. He doesn't look like the classic homeless man, but I might bear a closer resemblance in physical features to what you'd perceive as a homeless vagabond. And Amy, being a single woman hiking across country, has definitely not been experiencing fear so much for many, many reasons, most of them obvious. And both of them seem to have experienced more openness from people on the trail. People inviting them into their home, letting them stay in a guest bedroom, do laundry, have dinner with the family. I've had a handful of those offers and experiences, but just a handful. And I have to say I find it kind of disappointing, but also really enlightening. Related to the topic we're talking about now, the power of fear in influencing our perceptions of another person, and our ego, our mind, our small sense of self, our fear-based sense of self, our separated sense of self, all definitions for the ego, kind of immediately project a story onto a person just based upon our visual frame of reference, our past experiences and history. And literally we create a whole story in our mind that may be based in no way, shape, or form on the reality of that person. There's a lesson in the Course in Miracles, a daily lesson called, that basically in essence is, you see nothing as it is right now. That unconsciously you always bring your past into the present and recreate the past over and over and over again. And that we don't see the world as it really is right now. Oop, another snake break. Yep, I think that one's dead. Sorry, I'm a nature lover. So I find that interesting. I find that enlightening, and I thought you might too. I'll highly recommend again the book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, a book my brother-in-law turned me on to about 15 years ago, and that's had a great influence on me. Very short, easy to read book. A more challenging book to read is one I recommended a few videos ago called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. But in many ways, both of them are explaining the same phenomenon. That unconsciously, we can easily create a reality and experience, a personal experience based upon fear and separation. But consciously, we can choose a wholly other experience, one based on love and connection, community, compassion, and empathy. And it's a daily practice. It's a moment-to-moment practice, but it's incredibly liberating. It is the heart of freedom, which is really what Adam Kokesh spoke about and what he writes about in Freedom. Highly encourage you to read that book too. 100 pages, free on his website. Just Google Adam Kokesh and you'll find it. Adam Kokesh Freedom. And if you happen to catch him on his American Freedom Campfire Tour around the country, just posted on his website too, you can get a signed hard copy of it free as well. But if you'd like to donate to help him continue his work, he and his girlfriend Macy and their cool dog Baloo travel around the country, make a donation and support him. So just some thoughts this morning. You know, tonight I'm going back into residential areas, and it's a challenge for me to find a place to sleep. It gets a little stressful and depressing out here because so much of this trail, most of it is on private land. And a lot of times I really have to do what's called stealth camping, which is just finding a place where I can hide out, many times on private property, a wooded area, where I can sneak in, tuck in, quietly camp. And I'm a what's called leave no trace camper. You'll never know I was there, and then slide out the next morning. But it's a little nerve-wracking every day having no idea where you're going to sleep that night. And that is the experience of homeless people in America. And the tragedy is that when you understand that the idea of lack and limitation, the idea that in an infinite universe, no one questions when we look out into the stars that the universe goes on and on and on and on forever, that time and space are infinite. But for whatever reason, we've been conditioned to believe that the earth is an anomaly, an exception, and that everything here is limited, and that we must fight and compete with each other for these limited resources in an infinite universe. It's a real paradox when you think about it. Until you start to understand that mind control, mind programming, happens on very, very subtle levels. And it happens from the moment we hit the ground here. You get indoctrinated into your culture, your religion, your family beliefs, your community beliefs, your language, your society, none of which in and of themselves are bad, but the subtle beliefs woven within there, like lack and limitation, have a dramatic effect on our outward experience as we act according to our beliefs. And if we believed that resources and life itself is infinite, unending, and eternal, how differently we would behave toward each other. And something like someone going hungry, going without a roof over their head, going without friends, going without community, connection, as homeless people in this country do day in and day out, would evaporate. Literally, just from changing our beliefs, the world around us changes. What an incredibly powerful realization, incredibly powerful tool in our hands. And that's obviously a big part of the central message I've been trying to communicate through this Trek for Truth. Just one among millions across this planet that are inviting people to reframe their experience, open their minds, see things as they are now, not through the eyes of the past. Be an imaginal cell, in the words of Dr. Bruce Lipton. All this information and more you can find on our website at www.trekfortruth.org. Encourage you once again to visit there. Please subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, same name, Trek for Truth, and like us on Facebook at Trek for Truth. So for this morning, my ramble is over. It is one muggy morning. I am just strolling down a flat road and I'm soaked to the bone already. But it's all good. I'll be visiting with my brother and his partner Carol in a couple of days in Bellevue, Kentucky. And my 1,000-mile mark, I think, will actually transpire when I cross the Roebling Bridge from Cincinnati across the river into Kentucky. Maybe I'll do a video that day. For today, it's Unitic out.